We are joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Al Ashry. Welcome, sir, to Qnews. Given the Palestinian Prime Minister's urgent appeal and the dire warnings of the catastrophic famine, what do you think are the specific international mechanisms or interventions do you think are the most effective in maybe compelling Israel to halt its alleged policy of the starvation in Gaza?
Certainly. The international calls of the last few hours have increased as there is a dire famine and the killing of the children due to the shortage of the food supplies, along with hundreds of civilians who were killed due to the shortage of the aids. And even the war was labeled as skilled and should be seized immediately. And even the King of Belgium has appealed to the ceasefire, and along with the Prime Minister's appeal, I think the court now, even the court of the United Nations and the United States, Netanyahu wanted to change the equation for the Palestinians, to force them to be displaced after the failure of the pursuing and the killing that failed to have some sort of setback by leaving the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip. And therefore the international community, along with the humanitarian aid and the EU, has addressed the crisis last week and making a deal with Israel not to have sanctions against Israel in return of delivering the tons of the load trucks. And up till now, this decision wasn't decisively prevailed. In order to save the situation, in order to prevent the dire famine and the killing of hundreds of thousands due to the killing starvations, due to the failure of the GHF of delivering aid by US, and in order to give an opportunity of the delivering the aid by the responding of more pressure, otherwise Gaza will be transferred to be like a killing field.
Sir, the abduction of Dr. Marwan al-Hams, who's of course a key medical figure, is condemned as an act of silence to the voice of Gaza suffering. How might this act, do you think, impact the already fragile healthcare system in Gaza and the delivery of critical aid?
The health sector is in a very critical sector about to be collapsed, and even there is no sort of health unit and hospitals for the renal failure patients or the injured or even the killed patient carried by the donkey cart in Gaza, as the ambulances vehicles aren't operative due to the shortage of the oil and solar. The hospitals were not operated, and Dr. Hams and others, the abduction is a bit by Israel to let the health workers to suffer in a bid to silence the voices and requesting the international community to intervene and to stop the humanitarian catastrophe. And I think the international community as a whole is condemning Israel. Even the United States, through statement by yesterday by U.S. officials to access agency state citing that Netanyahu now is acting like a crazy man in Gaza Strip and the south of Lebanon, and this matter would lead for the United States and others to be intervened. I think that the humanitarian and health exercises in a cursed war by Netanyahu, and its main goal is trisecting the Palestinian people in order to silence the voices of having Netanyahu held accountable. And to provide some concession by Hamas in order to implement the displacement resolution.
Sir, Germany, let me move on to my next question. Germany has strongly condemned the targeting of civilians during the aid distribution. What do you think are the implications of such strong condemnations from international partners, and how might they translate this into tangible pressure on Israel?
Israel has lost its reputation internationally, even its closest allies in the EU, all the whole world in the East, along with the Middle East. Israel's reputation has lost its stature internationally, and labeling the Prime Minister as the killers of children, and therefore this exercises and even the statement that we are not targeting what's happening to the Palestinians throughout the 50 years. And so the condemnation of the international institution is a bit to pressure Israel and expose all the manipulations by the Israeli officials that would lead some sort of ruptures in the international relation and even in Israel. And also they called for some sort of an international isolation in the long run. Some says that the ICG would continue to pursue the Israeli officials for Netanyahu to provide more concession with regard to the international and judiciary's demands.
Sir, the Israeli army's expansion of operations into previously untouched areas like Deir el-Balah, coupled with evacuation orders, this all raises concerns. What do you think are the humanitarian consequences of these expanding military operations, particularly for the displaced populations?
Certainly, all the Israeli approaches with regard to establishing humanitarian zones have failed, and Israel is about to launch a new project with a full blockade in case of the establishment of such alleged humanitarian loads to be felt. And all the previous acts proves that Israel is pursuing to implement the policy of the burned downs due to the international pressures that are pursuing to have some sort of a truce within 2 weeks before the upcoming days of the officials in Israel. Israel has nothing to do to withdraw, the Knesset, to have some sort of to execute a truce. Otherwise, the Israeli forces will continue to do the brutal acts along with the policy of starvation and following. Certainly, Israel is facing a great risk of pursuing an international rupture, and due to their acts to continue displacing the people from the center of Gaza into the south and the north.
And that was Mr. Ashraf Al Ashry from Cairo, Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you, sir, for joining us on Qnews.